So hello everyone, how are you doing today? And welcome to No More Hiding podcast. And we're excited about everyone being here today. We're excited about just the opportunity to be back in this space. It's been a while since we've seen everyone and been able to bring this conversation to you. But we're back. We're back and we're excited about everything that's about to happen tonight. And so we want to, before we get started, we do want to bring in one of our co-sponsors of this conversation tonight with these just educated Black men. And so we're going to bring Brother Mike Harvey, who's the president of the Upsilon Zeta Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and he's going to welcome you.
Thank you, Dr. Rice, and thank you to all those who have joined on the various platforms of live stream to the impact of education and conversation with Black male educators. On behalf of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, the Upsilon Zeta Sigma chapter, I'm Mike Harvey. I'm the president, and thank you all for joining.
All right, so thank you for being here. So let's set the context. Before we begin, I want to let's consider something, the historical context and ongoing challenges shaping this crucial conversation. The story of education in Black America is deeply intertwined with a long history of systemic inequities in the United States. From the days of slavery, when it was illegal to teach enslaved people to read and write, to segregated schools of Jim Crow era, access to quality education has been a constant struggle for Black communities. In the face of these challenges, education has long been viewed as the great equalizer, a pathway to opportunities and social mobility. Horace Mann popularized the idea in the 19th century, suggesting that education could level the playing field and provide a route out of poverty and discrimination. Building on this concept, W.E.B. Du Bois introduced the talented 10 philosophy in the early 20th century. This theory proposed that 1 in 10 Black men should become leaders through classical liberal education, and that these educated few would guide the Black communities towards social and economic progress. While influential, this idea has been both praised for its emphasis on education and criticized for its potential elitism. Despite these philosophies and progress made through landmark decisions like Brown versus Board of Education, the promise of education as an equalizing force remains unfulfilled for many today. We continue to grapple with significant disparities in educational outcomes, resource inequalities between schools and affluent areas and those in marginalized communities, disproportionate disciplinary actions against Black students, underrepresentation of Black educators, particularly Black male educators, achievement gaps that persist from elementary school through higher education, in the school to prison pipeline, and I like to call the home to prison pipeline, that disproportionately affects Black youth. These modern education issues are not just academic concerns. They have real lasting impacts on individuals, families, and entire communities. They reflect the perpetuate broader societal inequities, making education both a battleground and a potential catalyst for change. In today's discussion, we'll explore these complex issues through unique perspectives of Black male educators. Their insights, experiences, and trust me when I tell you their insights, experiences, and strategies offer valuable viewpoints on addressing these challenges and working toward a truly equitable education system. As we listen to their stories and ideas, we invite you to consider how we can transform education to serve all students better. What role can each of us play in this crucial work? And how might the increasing representation of Black male educators impact the educational landscape? Join us as we delve into these critical questions in The Impact of Education, a conversation for Black male educators. Joining us today in this discussion, and I'm going to introduce them, and then we'll get into some questions. Today, we're honored to have Dr. Charles Pearson, a distinguished educational consultant, author, and public speaker with over 35 years of experience in urban education. Dr. Pearson's career marks an unwavering commitment to educational equity. He has served in various roles from classroom teachers to superintendent, always focusing on improving African-American academic achievement. His dedication to this cause led him to complete a dissertation on factors contributing to the success of African American academic achievement initiatives in Missouri. Behind his work as a traditional educational setting, Dr. Pearson founded the Innovative Education Solution and currently serves as the CEO of Impactful Living LLC. He's also a co-facilitator for the Success Ready Student Network, working to implement personalized, competency-based instructions across Missouri. Dr. Pearson's impact extends to spiritual realms as well. He recently published God, I'm Struggling, as a part of his mission to equip believers to lead impactful lives. He is also the executive pastor at the Friendly Temple Missionary Baptist Church. With his wealth of experience in education, leadership, and community service, Dr. Pearson brings a unique and valuable perspective to our discussion on the impact of education and the role of Black male educators. So welcome, Dr. Pearson. We're excited to have you today. Next, I want to introduce Dr. Carey Cunningham. Today, we're privileged to have Dr. Cunningham, a distinguished educator, leader with over 30 years of experience in the field of education, with us. Dr. Cunningham's journey in education is both extensive and inspiring. After a remarkable 25-year career with the St. Louis Public Schools system, where he served as a teacher, principal, and various administrative roles, Dr. Cunningham founded Virtual School Coaching and Consulting Incorporation. Through this venture, he continues his mission of empowering schools to create exceptional educational programs. His commitment to education extends beyond the classroom. Dr. Cunningham serves as the St. Louis Administrator Association president and sits on the general executive board of the American Federation for School Administrators, representing over 24,000 administrators nationwide. With a doctorate in education and leadership from the University of Missouri St. Louis, Dr. Cunningham brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion. His journey from an elementary education graduate of Harris-Stowe State University to a prominent educational leader and consultant offers a unique perspective on the evolving education landscape. Dr. Cunningham, thank you for joining us today. We're excited to delve into your insights on this impact of education and the crucial role of Black male educators in shaping our educational system. Dr. Cunningham, thank you for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to be part of this distinguished group.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Next, I want to introduce Mr. Brent Mitchell. We're excited to have him. He's a dedicated educator and leader who brings a wealth of experience to our discussion. Mr. Mitchell currently serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Support Services for the Ferguson-Florissant School District in Hazelwood, Missouri. It's in this crucial role he oversees the education support services for 9,600 children across 23 campuses, demonstrating his commitment to educational excellence on a large scale. Mr. Mitchell's educational journey is impressive. A native of Little Rock, Arkansas, he holds an educational specialist degree from the University of Central Arkansas, dual master's degrees from Harding University, and a bachelor's in elementary education from the University of Arkansas in Pine Bluff, HBCU in the house. He continues pursuing knowledge as he works toward his PhD at Liberty University. Mr. Mitchell joined the Ferguson-Florissant School District in 2023. He brings a fresh perspective and passion for fostering unity among stakeholders. His focus on holistic student growth and community engagement aligns perfectly with our discussion today on the impact of education. Dr. Mitchell, I'm speaking it. We're excited to have you here. Your experience and insight would undoubtedly enrich our conversation on the crucial role of Black male educators in shaping our educational landscape. Dr. Mitchell, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. I receive it. 25 hours ago. We almost.
Yes, sir. All right. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Dr. Lanor Payne. We're honored to have Dr. Payne, an accomplished educator with over 18 years of diverse experience in the field of education, with us. Dr. Payne currently serves in a dual capacity in the Normandy School Collaborative District. He is both the principal at Normandy Early Learning Center and the director of education for PK through 2, showcasing his expertise in early childhood education and educational leadership. Dr. Payne has worn many hats in his educational sector throughout his career. He has been a classroom teacher, staff member, administrator across several school districts, including Riverview Gardens, St. Louis Public Schools, and Hazelwood. His experience extends beyond Missouri, having worked in the New Orleans public school system and served as a superintendent of special education at the Annie Malone Therapeutic Academy in St. Louis. Dr. Payne's academic credentials are equally impressive. He holds a bachelor's degree from Southeast Missouri State University, a master's in early childhood education from Webster University, a doctorate in education from Maryville University, and an education specialist degree from Lindenwood University. Dr. Payne, we're thrilled to have you join us today. Your extensive experience across various educational roles and your focus specifically on early childhood education brings a valuable perspective to our discussion on the impact of education and the role of Black male educators. Dr. Payne, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we want to welcome everyone. We're excited to have you joining us live in this discussion, whether you're joining us through Facebook or YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever platform you're joining us in. We thank you for being here. This is a live event, so feel free to interact with us in real time. We'd love for you to spread the word. So if you enjoy the conversation, please share it on your social media platforms. Let your friends know we're live and invite them to join us. We value your thoughts and questions, so feel free to use the chat feature from whatever platform that you're watching us. We'll do our best to address as many of your comments and questions as possible during our discussion. Your participation for being here makes this conversation richer and more meaningful. So don't be shy. Join in. Share your thoughts. Let's make this an interactive and insightful discussion for everyone. All right? So we're going to begin. Let's start our conversation with a question that I'm going to ask each of our panelists to ask. We'll start with Dr. Pearson and go to Dr. Cunningham. Then we'll go to Mr. Mitchell and lastly, Dr. Payne. So I'm going to ask you in 2 minutes, introduce yourself and share with the audience your community involvement, favorite quote, and memorable moment in your career to this date.
Okay, great. Again, Dr. St. Rice, thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this conversation tonight. I've really been looking forward to it. And again, thank you for the introduction. Community engagement, as executive pastor of Friendly Temple, I'll be candid. More and more of my time has been committed to doing that particular work, both supporting the executive leadership aspect, but also working to support ministries. It's a thriving urban ministry. And so looking at ways we can grow, looking at ways we can impact community, and looking at ways we can impact those who come has been a big piece. My second piece, though, is like you, but a different fraternity, Omega Psi Phi fraternity, Upsilon Omega chapter, is really powerful in terms of the community engagement pieces that it does. I really became active with them during the pandemic with everything, well, prior to that, voter registration, food drives, scholarship support. Just being a part of that organization has helped to round out what I'm doing community-wise. The last thing, which I think is maybe equally important, is there's a group named Oikos. Oikos is a group of non-religious leaders who came together now 2 years ago to begin raising funds to support 6 agencies that help Black and Brown families get in their first homes. So I work as a co-facilitator for that group. So between the ministry and between Oikos and between the fraternity, those are kind of the broader buckets that I work in terms of the community. This idea of favorite quote was tough, but I'm going to go with one that I have come to live by. There's a gentleman named Adam Grant. He did a book called The Originals. And he talks about how nonconformist people rule the world. He had a simple quote. The quote said, "Reject the default." Many times when we have a decision in front of us, we think about what's the easier way to do, what's the natural thing to do. But what he says is ask yourself about option B, then C, then D. Go for what would not normally be the choice. And I have found that that's the key to being able to be really innovative in terms of leadership. So again, my quote got many, but I settle on that one: reject the default.
Oh man, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you.
You asked for a memorable moment. Did you do that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And short, memorable moment, standing in front of the state board when it reaccredited the Normandy Schools Collaborative. That was a memorable moment after some intense work for a couple of years. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you again.
That was an awesome feat as well. So thank you. Thank you for your service and everything that you're doing for the education community. Dr. Cunningham, we're going to pass the mic to you. You're muted.
My community service, I work with a lot of small nonprofit organizations to help them get up and running. The last few months, I took a new adventure, going and speaking into some drug rehab programs to take a look at our adult males who have fallen through the crack and see how can we help them to come back and to make a powerful impact with their experiences on life. And that is really doing a lot for me. My favorite quote is what got me into education is the meaning of education. That's a gentleman by the name of Ahmed Mahdi. Years ago, he presented to me in front of a youth program. And he said, E means out. Eduk is a Latin word which means to lead, and it ends with the suffix shun, and with moving emotion. So education is a movement of emotion that brings the best out of you. When I heard him say that, I jumped into education and dedicated my life to that. And so that's what has kept me, motivated me throughout the years and making an impact in education. My memorable moments, back in October, I was invited to come to speak on Capitol Hill about the impact that removing Title I, Title II, Title IV from schools and what impact that would have on schools in a negative way. So I was really delighted to go there to speak on behalf of schools to talk about the importance of us keeping title funds in place. And so that's me. That's who I am. That's what I do. And once again, enjoy my life and education. Enjoy dedicating myself and giving back to the community, which has given back to me.
And we're excited to have you here. We're looking forward to the conversation that you're going to share with us because your perspective is a different flavor to this idea of education. So thank you for being here, Dr. Cunningham.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mitchell, what's going on? We're going to invite you to the stage. Talk to us a little bit.
Man, I probably should have went first, saying Rice, because these brothers are too heavy for me. I'm just a kid from Little Rock, man. I've been blessed to be in this thing for 25 years. I'll go backwards. I think the most memorable moment for me thus far in my career was I was able to renew a charter for a failing school district a couple of years ago. So a lot of work, but just being able to give that back to families in the community that was failing is a highlight for me. In my spare time, I'm as you can see behind me, I'm big into sports. I've got a son that plays college football. I've got another kid that's on the way. So I'm always at some type of practice, some type of game, or some type of training session, just trying to give back to kids because sports saved my life as well. My favorite quote would probably be Muhammad Ali. Live every day as if it's your last because one day you're going to be right. And so I've always done that throughout my career. I think that, this topic is so important because it's going to take Black men to save Black boys. So excited about the conversation, blessed to be here, looking forward to getting into it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. And that is so true. What you said about the impact of Black men on the impact of Black boys. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Payne, talk to us.
All right, so good evening, everyone, again. I'm proud to say that I'm entering my 18th year in education. It really doesn't feel like it. I know I don't look like it, but yes, my 18th year. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of serving in various roles, all aimed at nurturing and developing young minds. I'm an active member of the greatest fraternity in the world, Phi Beta Sigma. Beyond that, I'm committed to giving back to my community as a mentor for big brothers and big sisters. I'm an ACT college prep coach and a part-time Sunday school teacher with heavy emphasis on part-time. One of my favorite quotes, which resonates deeply with me in the field of early childhood education, is, "Children are not things to be molded, but are people to be unfolded." This quote by Jess Lair reminds us that our role as educators is to guide and support each child's unique journey, allowing their true potential to blossom. A very memorable moment for me in my career was during my tenure as the director of early childhood in the Riverview Garden School District. I had the honor of leading our early childhood program to become the first urban school district in the state of Missouri to receive the Missouri Early Childhood Center of the Year award. This achievement was a true testament to the hard work, dedication, and passion of our entire team. Again, Brother Rice, I want to thank you for allowing me to share a little bit more about myself, and I'm excited to continue making a positive impact on our students and community.
Yes, yes. And we're excited to have you here because your lens from early childhood is an area where I think that a lot of individuals in our community don't quite understand, right? We think it's just about building blocks and coloring books, but those formidable years are so critical to our growth. So we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight. So in reverse order, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask each of you all to respond to, and we'll go in the reverse order. As Black male educators, what unique challenges have you encountered in the educational system? And how do you believe these challenges impacted the overall educational landscape? So we'll start with Dr. Payne and go in reverse order.
All right, so for me, let's see. As a Black male educator, one of the challenges I face is the feeling basically of being one of the few in a space where representation is very limited. In many of the schools I've worked in, I've often been the only Black man on staff, which can feel very isolating. There's also the pressure of carrying the weight of expectations and sometimes being viewed through the lens of stereotypes. These experiences have shaped how I see my role, not just as an educator, but as a mentor and role model for students who may not often see themselves reflected in adults around them. These challenges have made me more determined to push for greater diversity within the education system. I personally believe that having more Black male educators can help break down these barriers, challenge the stereotypes, and create a more inclusive environment where all students feel seen and valued. It's not just about representation, it's about ensuring that every student has access to a range of perspectives and experiences that enrich their learning and growth.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Mitchell.
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit off what Dr. Payne said. I think for me, one of the biggest challenges I see is the access. I think that a lot of times children who look like us don't have the access their counterparts have. I often have worked in districts where expectations were low because they just felt like kids couldn't perform. And for me, that's probably the biggest thing that I fight for in every day in my role. I believe in a cadence of accountability. I believe that everybody in their role has to do what's best for kids, whether you're a security officer, whether you're a bus driver, or you're an office professional. Everything we have to do has to be in the spirit of excellence for kids because our kids matter and our kids often don't have the access that other kids in other communities have.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Cunningham.
And I will follow these gentlemen. The reason I got into education because in studying one of my great role models is Joanne Skanjufu. He said that Black male teachers were 1% at the elementary level, and I still see that. I know it may be increased now about 2%. So we need that Black male image at the elementary level. What we find out sometimes when they get Black educators, they put them more at the high school, not to be educators, but more so to be there to be security, right? To kind of control our young people. So we need that image throughout, but also started at the elementary level. The other thing is administrative turnover. I came up under the leadership of Dr. Lynn Beckwood in Urban Teachers Urban Educated Program, and one of the things that was stated at that time is that the importance of administrators. So goes administrators, so goes the schools. So if we're having schools where we're continually having turnover, those schools, it's hard for them to get on track to be successful because we continue to, it's like a trial and error, right? Will this administrator work at this school, right? And if they're not successful there, then once again, we have schools that struggle. So that consistency of administrators really is important and needs to play a role. And then the last thing that I'll talk about is understanding this whole thing around culturally relevant teaching, right? We need to understand how African American students need to see themselves in the curriculum. When they do not see themselves in that curriculum is not important to them. And also those culturally relevant practices, right? How do we educate our young people without damaging their self-esteem? And so when we have these things in place, then our students become more successful.
Man, you said a mouthful. I saw some head nods and everything. We're going to come back to that impact of leadership. But before we do, I'm going to ask Dr. Pearson to join us in this conversation. What's your thoughts?
Well, first place is coming last, I had to start knocking off. Okay, he said that. But I was struck by you. I was struck by this one thing that really began to haunt me earlier. When you're the African-American teacher, there may be several, there may be generally only a handful. One of the challenges you have is being sure you can help students navigate this bicultural world, because many of them are not aware of what those unwritten rules and so forth are. The other piece is to be sure that they're leaving there with their own sense of self-worth intact. That means that they have to be able to connect to the curriculum. It has to be relevant to them. That means you have to equip teachers to be able to make the curriculum relevant, both in terms of culturally responsive teaching, but also in terms of the contents and then curriculum. So those are the places that really struck me as places that really need, that are critical to look at, that I've had a chance to look at through Black perspective.
Oh, man, you all saying a mouthful. And once again, we want to remind our audience, those who are joining us today, feel free to drop in your questions in the chat, whatever platform you utilize, and we'll get a chance to go back to them or be able to bring them in. If you have comments, we see quite a few comments that's on there. So Connor, we see you. Say, come on, fellas, speak on it. Dr. Deans, Chester Deans, we appreciate you being here tonight. Right, so I have a question for you, Dr. Pearson. I'm going to ask you to think about this question. Drawing from your 35-year career in urban education, and this includes role from classroom teachers to superintendent, what are the most significant challenges and opportunities in promoting educational equity, particularly for African-American students?
One of the first challenges still continues to be the access to equitable resources. There are a couple of things that are true. That if you have a high poverty population, there generally tends to be more trauma. There tends to be more need for social emotional support. There generally tends to be a need for more resources to support the home, more wraparound services. I always say this is a context. These are not excuses, but the context is real. So you have to be able to address those things in order to be sure that the students that are in front of you are able to get the opportunities they need. The second thing, and this is something that spins back to the work that I'm doing with the Success Ready Students Network. I found when I was superintendent that many urban students, our urban students respond to real things. So school can sometimes be abstract to them. But as we think about making children more accessible through real world learning, connecting them to businesses, connecting them to internships, that suddenly makes a lot more sense to them, because they can see I'm learning it here, but I know I can apply it here. And we all know that everyone wants to be able to learn something that gives them power in their life. So the things that I see are real world learning is really critical. Supporting children and being highly successful in these spaces is very important. And then the final thing I would add is this idea of what I call collective impact, where all the agencies in a community come together, police, law enforcement, health services, housing, social workers, with schools, to be able to holistically tackle the things that our children face. So those are the things that my 35 years have shown me.
Oh, man, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And when we talk about that collective impact, right, we know oftentimes that goes against some of the systemic ideas of education, right? Because oftentimes the educational system sees an individualistic approach.
Right.
And so, and taking that community approach can be really, really challenging, right? And so thank you for sharing that. I got to jump over to Dr. Cunningham and bring him into this space. All right, so throughout your 25-year career in the St. Louis Public School, you wore many hats, from elementary teacher to administrators, right? So my question for you is, how has this diverse experience shaped your perspective on creating exceptional educational programs? And what do you consider to be the most critical elements for success?
Wow. One of the things is it allowed me to get a true understanding of students at various developmental levels. and how it's so important for us to understand that and nurture that piece. And also, how do we use a holistic approach? You know, some people try to do a one size fits all. And so we got to understand with our children, we have to understand that this whole thing, we have to approach it from a holistic approach. And we must do it by creating this balance, right? And academic as well as socially. I always like to tell these stories, right? And in working in alternative schools, what I saw that our children were hurting. And that's why they got there, right? It's a hurt people. And so, but their hurt was never addressed. Right. And that's why it's so important for us to truly understand what's called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Yep. We got to understand the why children do what they do. Yes. What we do, we respond to the behavior that we see, but we do not respond to the underlying cause. So in order for us to really be effective and make an impact on our young people, we got to understand the why. And so I always, once again, the homework for those out there, you need to go and do your research on Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, a young, powerful African-American young lady who truly took a look at ACEs and applied an approach that works. So once again, we must understand why our children do what they do so we can help them in the most effective manner.
Man, thank you for that. And I believe that is critical, right? Sometimes we think about the what, but we don't ask the question why, right? And thinking about that question why is critical. Dr. Pearson, I see you look like you want to say something. Go ahead, jump in.
The ACEs assessment is an amazing thing, but I think the thing that points out is that, and a child said this to me, I was teaching in a district, he was acting up. He was just challenging folks in a lot of ways. So one of the things that I learned is let's talk first about where you're successful. Then after we talk about where you're successful, let's talk about why you're successful.
Yes, sir.
And then let's say, so if there are 3 classes you're successful in, how can you take that behavior and repeat it in the 4th class and make it work? And the child, I said to him, so what's easy for you? And he said to me, everything here is hard. It's like, wow. And I realized he was struggling with some things, but he was coming to school every single day.
Yes, sir.
That was especially hard for him. And that made me realize something that we often forget. Our children are resilient. They push through. And the idea that was just shared about us understanding why they do what they do, that's a critical thing, because until you get the root cause, all you're dealing with is symptoms.
Yes, sir.
Symptomatic solutions, I get that later. That's a whole nother day. Symptomatic solutions never solve anything. So, yeah, that was a trigger for me. It was a trigger for me. It was a trigger.
I think I'm ready to bring in another trigger. There's a question that was asked, and I'm gonna bring it onto the screen. It says there are not any Black educators or teachers, right? Post antebellum, and Black people seem to learn well. Why does the individual teaching them have to look like them to ensure educational success? Who wants to jump on that question?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Two things. One is there's a huge value in the teacher looking like the child. That's a given. But true, in doing PD years ago with predominantly white staffs, what a staff has to have is they have to be taught to have where they have the empathy to identify with the child that is in front of them. And that can happen across color lines if the teacher is intentional about that. Because you're right, you won't be able to fill every classroom with all Black teachers, but you better be able to fill every classroom with teachers who are empathetic and culturally responsive. A quick story, then I'll step back. Had a teacher first year, young white female who was struggling in tears every night. Her parent called it bored. What's going on? But then all of a sudden she stopped crying. Like, well, why did she stop? She said, I looked up one day and realized I didn't know my kids. I didn't know them. So she started working to get to know them. So one day she was playing a little music. They were all working. All of a sudden, a boogie song came on. The kids all jumped up and started dancing. She jumped up and started dancing with them. They all busted out laughing. And she said, let's get back to work. And they all got back to work. She had bridged their relationship piece. They now connect with her because she in turn connected with them as people. So no matter who's in front, they better have that, or there will be some issues.
And I want to add to that. The other thing it does, it kills this stereotype, right? especially that when it comes to black students, that we can only be successful through being athletes, right? But when we see black educators who understand philosophy and all of that, it gives you an opportunity to understand the ability that you have to become successful. So having that black educator in front of you, also that educator understands you because they may have went through some of the same things that you went through, and they have a better opportunity to navigate you through the system without, once again, damaging your self-esteem and doing it.
Let me get 30 seconds on this, because
Come on, jump on in, Dr.
I
Mitchell.
keep seeing the words "no more hiding" on your screen, St. Rice.
Yes, sir.
And I want to say, as a black man who came from a drug-addicted household, no father in the home, nobody believed in anything I could do, had a teacher kick me out of a GT class because I was a black kid that smelled like football practice. If I didn't have black men that looked like me to keep me supported, I wouldn't have 4 degrees seeking number 5. The second thing I'll say is that these black men gonna teach these black kids either at school or outside of school.
Wow.
Some of y'all will get that when y'all log off tonight.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll quickly say
On in, Dr. Payne.
what we have to understand, and especially in the world of early childhood, the parents that are raising kids now, we have the woke parents that are raising their kids, and a lot of our kids now are coming from households where they have their parents telling them, like, we don't trust white people and all of those things. So to Dr. Pearson's point, for me, it's not about the color of the person that's in front of my students. It's, whether you're empathetic or not. But to me, it's also very important to have that representation in the classroom, because sometimes we don't realize, even as black educators, we bring our own biases in the classroom and can hold it against our students. But sometimes with like our non-black teachers, it's little things that they don't understand about our culture. Like it can be something that's simple as like, why this kid always so loud? But like when you get to know that kid's family, you see that the mama loud, the daddy loud, everybody's loud. But we understand that, and we get it. But they don't. So sometimes, it's those little things that that makes a big difference. And that's one thing that I love about working in early childhood, because a lot of our students, unfortunately, do come from one-parent households. So they don't have that positive male role model in their life, or some of them do. I'm not going to say all of them don't, but some of them, like they look at me as their father, as like their uncle. And I treat my female students different than I treat like my boys, because they always, some of my boys will say, "But Dr. Payne, you're a little, you more nice to Amy and not nice to," like it's not about that. It's just I look at my little girls like like they're my daughters, and so it's like I discipline them different than I do my boys, because it's like if I use a certain tone with my girls, they'll instantly cry. But like my boys, they get it. But I am a little softer, with my female students, because I know that at the end of the day, they're looking up to me in a different way.
Man, that was a great dialogue. I got to bring in one more question real quick, and before I jump back to my question. So I want to bring in, Brother Mark Cruz says, based on the experience, what would be your advice to parents in helping students excel?
To me, it's very simple. We have to as parents, we have to get beyond the "how was your day" with our kids and students. We have to get more involved inside the classrooms. And I know, a lot of our parents, they do work 2 and 3 jobs, and that's okay. But the great thing about technology, we have so many avenues now how we can communicate with parents with different avenues, so they can constantly know what's going on in their child's classrooms. Because a lot of the times, schools will provide many opportunities for parents to come and learn how to help their child with their homework, or to help their child do better. But unfortunately, a lot of our parents don't show up. So how do we combat that? Like in my school, you know, we provide many opportunities because a lot of times we have more success when we do virtual sessions like this versus doing things in person. But I always make sure that, you know, we have different representation, like parents as teachers, because they're a great resource for our families as well. Because a lot of the times, some of our parents just don't know and they don't understand how to help their child grow or how to help them academically, how, you know, like how we're meeting their social, emotional learning needs. But, you know, the first thing I would say is definitely, you know, you have to start at getting involved and knowing what's going on in your child's classroom and not being afraid, you know, to ask for help if you need help or if you don't understand.
And I also want to add to this, parents have to understand too, when teachers and also administrators discipline your children, they're doing it out of love. And so, you know, you can't come and be argumentative and when your child has been disciplined. I think sometimes they have to understand, explain to them why we as administrators discipline them in the manner in which we do when we do it out of love and not be so combative. And when students see that, hey, if you're gonna fuss at me, I'm going home, mom coming and mother's coming with a negative attitude, I think once again, the parents have to show more support to their teacher and administrator when it comes to discipline children.
So I did when I first retired, I worked with a program called the Teacher Home Visit Program. It was a program where you indeed did teach teachers how to do at least 2 home visits a year. The first visit was about relationship building, and the second visit was about helping parents become more effective at supporting children at home. I bring that up because there are these 2 words that are sometimes out there. There's parental engagement and parental involvement. And they sometimes switch definitions, but parental involvement is when parents come to school, they go on field trips, they serve on curriculum committees, and they work as room parents. Wonderful. Builds great relationships with the teacher. But what helps children the most is what's called parental engagement. And there's a list that Joyce Epstein did maybe 20 years ago. Children actually spend more time at home than at school. Fact. So every day, a child should be reading something. Every day, a child should be doing some math. There must be a place in the home where the child knows they do homework. Now, doesn't have to be fancy. It can be the kitchen table. It just must be a place where they know. There must be those kind of supplies there. When parents talk to children, they should say things like, when you go to college, not if you go, or when you have your own business, not if you're going to have it. And they should talk to them about how they feel the education is positive. Even if they're angry at the school, they should never say to the kid they're angry at the school. They work that out with the adults. The child should only hear that school is worth going to. It's going to make a difference. So I say all that to say that one of the things the parents can do is exercise those things. And you may need help. If a parent is illiterate, you say to the parent, be sure that you or someone in the family reads every day. Now the parent is not put on Front Street because they are illiterate. But somebody, it can be an auntie, it can be a grandmama, it can be a neighbor. The child needs to do that every day, all summer, vacations. It doesn't have to be all day reading, but if you do those things, then children will begin to excel. And the research shows that parental engagement makes that difference.
Yeah, I'll put the plug on the back of it, man. First of all, shout out to the Avengers. I see y'all in the chat.
Yes.
Got an amazing team. Shout out to my people. I think it's 2 things when I heard that question from Brother Cruz. Number 1 is celebrate academics like we celebrate everything else. So scream for that report card like you scream for your baby scoring a touchdown. Scream for that progress report when every time that your baby gets a 3-pointer. But I think you also got to love on your kids. I think that the one thing I take as a lesson from being a parent of 3 kids is I got better along the way. So this 3rd time around, baby boy, I'm a phenomenal parent. My other 2 probably got a short end of the stick, but I just love on him, man. Like even if I'm furious at him, I love on him, and his responses are always just better than I did with my other 2. But I think that we just got to get back to, when you get older, you really miss those conversations with your grandparents. You miss those in-depth discussions and that knowledge they put into you. we got to get back to getting to our kids. We got to just give them wisdom and stop trying to be friends and stop trying to, be the parent that the kid is not upset with for holding them accountable, and get back to love them the way we were loved on when we came up. That's all it boils down to.
Man, you are dropping some nuggets tonight, and I'm gonna echo what you said, Dr. Mitchell. So my kids understand. They're probably watching. They understand we can have a friendship, but I can't be your friend. That's just not possible, right? My role at any given moment may shift, and if I didn't try to have this friend be your friend, you got plenty of friends. You have enough wisdom in your life, and so I think that's critical for us to recognize that. Man, the chat is blowing up, but if you all don't mind, I'm gonna jump on one of my questions before I go back to the chat. And this must be what people need right now because it's blowing up with questions. So, Dr. Mitchell, quick question for you. In your role overseeing 9,600 children across 23 campuses, what are the most critical support services for ensuring educational equity and success, particularly for students with underrepresented backgrounds?
If you'd have asked me this question a year ago, my answer probably would have been different. After being in Ferguson-Florissant for a year and getting the chance to truly embrace the community, I feel like, especially with my team, like I'm charging my team with developing wraparound services completely. Like we've got to be able to embrace the entire community. There's a lot of trauma. Hurt people. I heard that earlier. I think that when we deal with families and we try to, now that I'm dealing with I'm putting hands on every family in the district now in my new role, making sure their child's enrolled, making sure they got transportation services, making sure they have access to free mental health care, making sure they have backpacks, shoes, uniform shirts, haircuts, dental appointments. That's all under my wheelhouse now. And so I feel like it's very important to embrace the community and get them what they need, rather than kind of, a lot of educators in my level drive 3 or 4 districts away from their district. And I think we've got to get, I shop in Ferguson, I eat in Ferguson, I get my hair cut, the little bit I got in Ferguson. You've got to embrace that community, because when I call them and I tell them I need them, they show up. We were able to have 2,300 kids and families at our back to school fair 2 weeks ago. Amazing turnout. We ran out of backpacks, so immediately the first thing I did was ask Dr. Payne, what are y'all doing in Normandy to get all these kids backpacks and haircuts? I'm still in all that. So next year, Ferg floor, I'm getting put it on the record. Every kid come through that gate getting a backpack with a uniform, shirt, and school supplies. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but it's gonna happen. And so I just think you got to embrace the community, meet their needs, give them what they need, and that is how we kind of get back to taking things back over.
That's it. And for our guests that's joining us in this podcast, you could be a part of that conversation and success. So we're going to be reaching out to you and looking for your assistance to help some of these school districts. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Payne, I got to jump to you. You've been sitting there kind of quiet. I got one for you. What unique challenges have you faced in early childhood education, and how have these experiences shaped your teaching philosophies and methods?
Okay, I'll keep this brief because I could talk all night about the challenges. So for me in early childhood education, one of the most significant challenges I face is ensuring that every child feels supported, understood, and valued despite the diverse range of developmental needs, their family backgrounds, and cultural differences. Well, we have to understand that working with young children requires a deep level of empathy and adaptability, as each child comes with their own unique story and way of engaging with the world. Because people, it bothers me sometimes that people have this notion that preschool is just fun. The kids are just cute. They come to school and play. And you have to understand that we get the students when they have a clean slate. And it's not like how it was back in the day where our parents was pouring into us and we went to kindergarten and we had a strong foundation set. We're getting those students where, we have to do all of that. And if you go to any early childhood classroom right now, every teacher is stressed out because the first month and a half of school is just always crazy when you're dealing with 3 to 5 year olds, because we have to teach them how to simply be at school. And sometimes for some kids, they get it right away. For some kids, it do take them all year to get that. But the great thing about young learners is, their mind is definitely like a sponge. Kids definitely love routine and they learn very quickly. But we have to understand that we educate the whole child, not just academics. It's the whole child, because we have to have a strong focus on the social emotional learning piece, because a lot of our students do have the different developmental needs. So for an early childhood educator, you have to be very, very skilled to deal with that very diverse range of needs. And you have to understand that sometimes our kids come to us with different needs that we're not necessarily equipped to handle in that time, because if you're not a special education teacher, you may not understand some of the triggers and nuances that some of our kids have, because as a general ed teacher, we're only required to take one sped law class, and then you're off to do the work. But we really focus on, like at my school, and anybody from Normandy is on here, they would tell you at the Normandy Early Learning Center, I do not play about this, because I feel like I'm the leader in this building. So I know the district may be telling me we need to do assessments the first week of school, but I'm like, we're not doing that. We spend the first 2 to 3 weeks simply focusing on building relationships, setting routines and expectations, because I know that the academics will happen, because my kids cannot sit and get until they learn how to do that. And it's not something, we have to shift our mindset of getting away from thinking that this rote learning is the best learning. That's simply not the case. We have to meet our kids where they are and expose them to different avenues to learn. And that's what we do. It's very simple, because last school year, we had 98% of our preschoolers meeting all of their benchmarks. And we had 72% of our kindergartners reading on or above grade level.
Yes.
And now, which is a great thing, but now it's like everyone is like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, it's very simple. I'm letting my teachers teach. That's what they're doing.
Well,
we don't, and my teachers would tell you, we don't care who walk in our room. You're not going to tell us how we're going to reach our kids, because our data don't lie. So you're not going to tell us, oh, well, you need to do it this way. No, we're not. The way we're doing it is working, because that's why another hurdle that we're trying to fix now is retaining our early childhood students that we have in our districts, because a lot of our families, once their kids transition from us, they're like, Dr. Payne, my child not getting this type of experience at the school they're at now. Like, what are we doing about this? So that's how my dual role came about, because now I'm tasked with making sure that learning continuum from my kindergarten classrooms is happening in our first and second grade classroom. So the foundation that we laid in kindergarten, it will continue. So by the time our students reach third grade, they will be reading on grade level, and they will be prepared to succeed on the state assessment. But sometimes, we have to get back to the basics, and that's what we simply do. And we have to switch our mindset on not being afraid to truly do what's best for kids. And that has been like my new mantra over the last 5 years. It's like, I would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. You're not going to tell me like how I'm going to run my building, because I'm simply there to support my teachers and make sure that they have what they need to be successful in the classroom. And in return, that's why I had retained 100% of my teachers, and my teachers' attendance rate was 95%, because they knew coming to work was going to be fun, because I simply let them teach and do what they need to do to take our kids to the next level. And our data proves that we're doing a good job. So we're going to continue to operate in that lens.
That's it. Dr. Pearson, I see a proud look on your face. What you like? You got tears, man. What's going on?
Well, there's just so many things that are right about this conversation. But first thing that the principal Payne said is culture first, then content. Get the culture. Get the culture. Once children understand how you do school, then they understand that the person in front of them cares about them. Then they are prepared to hear what that person has to say. So I was just amazed. People, you're right. People don't know how critical that brain development from what 6 months up to like 3 or 4.
Yes.
Some serious time. The brain is just blowing up, and if it's not being fed right then, you'll be catching up from that point on. And it doesn't mean the child can't catch up. It's just really, really difficult. So kudos, Dr. Payne.
Thank you.
Kudos. Yeah.
That's it. I got to bring in a question off from my audience. So I'm going to bring this question in. 1 second. It says, how can districts work to build emotional capacity and acumen of our families? Dr. Payne, many families seem to have difficulty understanding how school works. So anyone can answer that. Let's throw that out there and see if we can help Ms. Thomas out.
I'll tackle it. I had to Google what acumen meant before I respond. Put it back up so I can say, okay.
There you go.
What you got to do is you got to everybody's point, embrace the whole child. And so when you know that the brain forms between 6 months and 3 years old, then you got to have programs in place for kids 6 months, 3 months, 3 years old. You also got to be able to serve the trauma. And so if you know you have a district that has a propensity for violence, then you've got to have programs in place where kids interact with police officers so they can see them in a different light. You have programs in place for kids to interact with kids who look like them, because in their community, they may not get along, but in school, they have to learn that skill set. You also have to be able to simply just meet the needs of your people. And so when I see families every day now that struggle with technology. And so, no, my staff is not going to be sitting up in offices all day processing applications. They're going to be at a computer station scanning papers and helping families get their stuff put in the system to enroll. And that goes for me all the way to all my directors, all the way to my office professionals. And if I got to pull folks from other schools, they there too. Because at the end of the day, it's about meeting the needs of the community. That's what we've done. And the goal is the goal. We're not stopping until we get on top. Point blank, period.
That's it.
And I'll add to that, like, one of the benefits I love about working in early childhood is, parent involvement and parent engagement is it's always high. Like, there's no event, anything that I have in my school where I don't have over 200 families in attendance. But one thing that we do that I really love that has really helped, once a month, and this year we're going to increase it to twice a month. We provide parents and guardians an opportunity. They literally get to come sit in their child's class. They get to see how our arrival goes, from the transition to breakfast, from breakfast to the classroom, and they actually get to see and participate in their child's day with the reading lesson, the math lesson. They get to go to PE, art, and all of that. And a lot of our families enjoy that because they'll walk away saying, you know what? Y'all don't pay our teachers enough to do what they do, because after 10 minutes of sitting in my son's classroom, I was tired. Like, because they, by providing them this opportunity, they really get to see and understand why, I'm always pushing with my parents to understand that, like, Mom, you have to understand that your child's teacher is not just educating your child, they're educating the 22 other kids that are in the classroom. And sometimes when parents see that and they see how things are being presented in front of their child when it comes to, like, reading and math, they have a better understanding of, like, oh, this is how they're teaching my son phonics, or, oh, this is, this is how they're doing that. But as a district, we have to allow parents that opportunity to do that, because we can't keep using that excuse, well, they don't come, they won't come. How they won't come if we're not providing them with that opportunity? And sometimes, we just have to be creative in what that opportunity looks like. But, we have to break that wall down and meet our parents, like where they are, because with our parent advisory council board that we have, our board is very active. And, for me as a leader, sometimes I have to humble myself in that meeting, because, my parents be hitting me with some heavy hitting questions, because, they be wanting to know. And, if they feel like a change needs to happen or whatever, they'll express that. But I make sure that myself and my assistant principal that we're at every meeting, because I'm like, we are the face of the school, and we can't always just focus on the positive, because at the end of the day, we work for the families, and that's what a lot of people tend to forget. It's like, if it wasn't for the mom with the bonnet and blah blah blah, the dad sagging, we wouldn't have a job. So we can't keep using the excuse, because at the end of the day, they're the reason why we have a job. So it's like, I have to make sure that I'm giving my parents voice and choice with limitations, but they know that they're an active participant in our school environment as well.
I want to jump in real quick. And I remember I was reflecting back, and this many years ago. My kids have been out of school, but my son was in the 4th grade, and he was at Barbara Jordan in U City, and his teacher was Katrina Willis. I remember this. I was fussing because she gave so much homework, and I'm like, I got 3 kids, I got to do this, and the other. And she looked at me, she said, Mr. Rice, I have kids too. And I don't think sometimes we as parents recognize that our teachers also have families. They have children. They have to be in school and things of that nature, And so that always stuck with me. It gave me a different perspective, because she had to remind me that as a parent, they have dual role as well. They're a teacher and a parent many times. But the question I want to ask as a follow-up is, right now we're seeing almost as if it's a pushing of parents out of the decision making of the students, right? And so we see in California right now, we're seeing laws being passed that don't give parents rights to know certain things. So if this child identifies as as just say they identified as something other than what they may have been born or whatever, then the teacher, the child has rights where the teacher can't reveal to the parent, this is what this child is doing or saying, right? And so how are we going to deal with this issue with removing the parents at such an early age? It used to be, in high school, but now we're seeing it even in the elementary system. How do we deal with it?
Well, one of the things I think we have to do as school leaders, you have to really be present, right? One of the things I did, I used to be the principal at Peabody School. Peabody sat in the middle of 3 housing complex. I was there every day. I was the first person that the students saw, and I was the last person that they saw. And I would invite the parents in. I had a cool, calming room, right? You got to understand, colors really play a role. I had a cool, calming room. I would bring the parents in, and I would just listen to them, because sometimes it really wasn't about what was going on in school. It was what was going on at home, some issues that they were dealing with, and how you was able to address it. One day, a little boy on the playground, right, he decided to make the great escape. He ran home from school, and the mother came back upset. And so when I came and I set the mother down, but when I began to listen to her, guess what? She said the air conditioning in the front room didn't work. The one in the back did not work. And so I brought in the parent support person. I said, how are we going to address this? He said, well, I know a place that can help get this parent air conditioning, but they have to be a senior. I said, how old are you, mother? She said, I'm 37. I said, well, on paper, you're going to be 73 today, because we're going to get your air conditioning fixed, right? And so she was able to do it. And guess what? The mother came back cool, calm, and respected us. So we have to be visible to meet them where they are, not judge them. Every day, I made sure that I was there wiping off tables, because I did not want my students eating breakfast at a nasty table. That was therapy for me, but I was building relationships. And guess what? I was listening to the students' conversations. I knew what was going on. I was listening to the parents. I was able to engage. So I'll say this, you have to be visible. They must see you, and they must hear from you.
Can I add to that?
You can.
But also what you just heard from both these two gentlemen is you must be visible and authentic.
Yes, sir.
You got to show up real. And then what I learned is you got to be, and again, this is just illustrate, you need to listen. You need to listen. Sir. And when you do that, there was another conversation we were having, when you ask about what develops parents, what draws them closer. When you have illustrated to parents that you are fair and listen, they go out into the community and they tell other parents, you can trust him. You can talk to him. And that kind of conversation will spread further than even any newsletter you do. So they're being authentic, they're listening, they're being present, being out of the office, being at events in the community from time to time. All those things build a relationship. And as we all know, everything rides on relationship. Everything.
This has been great. I want to get just a couple more questions in. So, Dr. Mitchell, I'm going to come to you. Given your experience in the classroom teaching high-level administrator, right? What strategies do you employ to ensure the support services effectively bridge the gap between administrative decisions and classroom reality, particularly in districts serving diverse student populations?
I think you have to just know who you're dealing with. I think that it's so many. I don't know why, but it feels like when we attain a certain level, we forget what we went through to get there. And so, I remember, walking in, and you get your little admin check. I thought I was really somebody, I'm sorry. Amen. I'm like, hey man, I went and bought me a couple new suits.
Did you have a parking spot?
Hey, I had a parking spot. I got a couple new suits. I was, buying my secretary lunch. I just had that fucking dream going. And I think that you really got to stay connected and you got to stay grounded, man, because I had the pleasure just a couple of weeks ago. I had the pleasure of sitting with a gentleman, and I won't say his name, but we just talked, and he was telling me that they made a movie about his life, and he said the one thing he learned from the actor that played his role in the movie about him was no matter how successful he got, he always wants to come in through the back door because that's where his people are. Wow. And so that's going to be a nugget for me for the rest of my career. When I'm even in my role now, when I come into a building, I'm going straight to the lunch ladies. I'm going to the custodial staff, looking on the OPs, and then the kids will always know me because I'm the big black dude with the gray beard with the cool shoes. So if I'm at a campus, I'm rocking designer tennis shoes because that's how I can have a conversation with kids. Mm-hmm. And I think that we really got to stick to that because, like Dr. Payne said, if we don't connect to these kids and they go virtual or go somewhere else, we ain't got no jobs. Mm. I don't know about y'all, but this little air conditioning we got behind you, it feel real good. My kids sport, doc, so I got to provide. So I just think you got to stay connected. I think you've always got to go through the back door, and I think you've always got to stay connected to your people.
Thank you. Dr. Pearson, I'm gonna throw one at you.
Yes,
Given
sir.
your work in reimagining and redesigning state assessments, right? We're getting ready to shift a little bit because we talked about that state assessment and accountability systems. What changes are most critical to ensure that these systems accurately reflect and support academic achievement for all students, particularly those from historically marginalized communities?
So the work that we're doing with the Success Ready Student Network, that language reimagine and redesign and reimagine, is looking at the fact that the current system we have has a huge test given at the end of the year. You take that test and the school is deemed failed or succeeded based upon a single test. That is horrible for low-income systems. The system also attacks and talks about the idea of 95% attendance. Now, there's no data that says why 95, why 90. We all know children all need to come. But if you're in a district where 36% of your children are homeless, they're not going to be hitting that 90. The current system then penalizes you for all those kind of things and doesn't give you any space to talk about why or how that's happening. So what's going on now with Success Ready Student Network is we're looking at getting rid of that. There are 20 districts that have been approved to get rid of that end of the year test as a measurement of whether you did well or not, and take a look at what districts are doing throughout the year. That's going to be good for all children. It's providing teachers a district with the opportunity to explain the data as part of their report to the community. So if children are doing well, this is what we're doing. If children are doing poorly, this is what we're doing. If our attendance is here, this is what we're doing. And so that's a part of the process. It's allowing children to solely, and this is a tough one. Let's quit talking so much about they did 174 hours in school. Let's talk about what they engaged in and what they did. And if a child actually covers a year's work sooner, how can we get that child to be able to move on to the next level of work? That's the kind of stuff we're doing. That's going to benefit all children. There's a final idea, because again, like one of my colleagues, I could talk about this all day. There's a thing called student agency. Children need to know they can decide to do something for themselves. That's called agency. And then efficacy is they know how to do something. So this model pushes kids to be setting more goals. Years ago, we talked about children developing their own portfolios and presenting them. Whatever you do, the child ought to understand what the objective is. The child ought to understand how to believe that they can learn it. The child can decide to learn it. And then you equip the child to learn it. And now that child has a greater sense of agency. The final thing that this model is doing is what I mentioned earlier, real world learning. Connecting children to outside of school.
Yes, sir. Yes, teach.
I went, there's a place called Cortex. You guys familiar with Cortex?
Yes, almost definitely. Yes.
It blew my mind. We're struggling with attendance at the high school. What if my students at the high school began every day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at Cortex? With all of these entrepreneurs and these brainstorming, they would never be absent again.
Right, yes.
But you got to redesign what the day looks like. And you got to redesign, you got to have 5 hours of seat time. You got to redesign all of that. The model we're working on now is challenging all those things because what we're doing can't sustain itself. So you ask me, that's what reimagining and redesigning is all about. And we're excited about it. We're excited about it.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in to have some of this?
Yeah, sure can.
One of the things that we truly have to understand is that we have to truly understand what's called adaptive learning, right? Adaptive learning are programs that learn the learners as they learn at the impact of instructions, right? And so what happens is, see, I never knew when I first started teaching, I had a program called CCC. 10 times after students came into my class, it knew their students. It knew all their weakness, strengths, and math. Now, these programs have fast forward after 30 minutes of you getting students doing a quick assessment and reading a quick assessment. It knows all of your strengths and weaknesses. And then no two children will work on the same thing at the same time. You work on your weakest areas, and then you move on. And so we truly have to understand adaptive learning programs and how they will be effective in working with our young people. And then I love what he said. How do we connect them to the real world? There is I do a lot of studies of programs out there. The city of St. Louis is working on a program called the 2030 Job Plan. But they're going to bring all of these jobs to the city of St. Louis County, Illinois, but no one's talking to the school. So if I'm in the 6th grade, that's me in 2030. So how are you preparing me to fit into that? There's another organization that I had a chance to go and meet and see what was taking place with. It's called Gateway Global, where they are taking young people between the ages of 16 and 30 and giving them the skills to understand GSI skills to work at NGA. So if our children are not involved in that, and we don't understand what's taking place, we're going to have another class of unskilled workers. And so how do we make these connections? I'll close with adaptive learning. And also, how do we connect them to, as he said, Cortex, as I mentioned, Gateway Global, NGA? How do we get them involved in these areas if we don't truly understand how children learn at their own pace? I'll say this. I ran the alternative school. What I found out, and from 2014 to 2018, they asked me to go and take on alternative schools where students was dropping out. What I found out, guess what? Students was down at Slate looking for a job. So we went to Slate and we put an instructional program there. We captured 28 students who were able to graduate. Then we had to be a little creative. We had 4 sites. One was at Vashon High School, Roosevelt, Gateway. And those students came there, and in small settings, they were able to learn using adaptive learning program. And so how do I know? The graduation rate increased from 60 students the first year, 70 students the next year, 121 students the third year, 181 students. You see, and so now, can I really tell you the real deal? I am who I am, and I'm gonna tell the truth. When I did that, because someone, and we got to understand, we can't allow school districts to just tap on to vendors because they want to make money off us, right? We got to understand what was working. I was removed off of my job because I failed to let a company come in to do the work. And when I went back and then took a look at the board docs, that company, they were paying them $500,000 a year and graduation rate fell down. So I'm saying, and I'm connecting this all to challenges that we face as Black male administrators. And sometimes when we're doing the right thing, that sometimes people do not want to see that. When I graduated 181 students, they honored me. They came in and took my position. You know, so I went back in the classroom. I taught for 2 years, retired. Now I'm able to do those things that I understand that works well for students. So I'm saying we got to get away from some just cookie cutter teaching, understand adaptive learning, and how do we connect them to the real world society? Because if we don't get them, the kill boys will. You see what I'm saying? If we don't get them, they're going to become what's called this new age now called crash dummies, where young people 30 and under identifying our young boys and encouraging them to go steal cars. So if we don't teach them how to build cars, someone's going to teach them how to steal it.
Wow.
Man, this evening has just flown by, you know, and I hate that we are close to the end of our conversation, because I'm telling you, this is one we might have to revisit. We might have to do a part 2. You know, we'll see what all the responses say, but I think we may have to come back to this one. But as a final question for all you all to consider, right? I'm going to ask you to share your final thoughts and provide advice for a parent, educator, community member, whoever may be listening, right? Who wants to know how they can positively impact the success of our school systems. So share your final thoughts and then give us some insight. Just give them a little bit of insight. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
For me, my advice to anyone wanting to positively impact our school systems is to stay actively involved and build strong, supportive relationships. For parents, this means engaging with your child's learning, communicating regularly with their teacher, and advocating for your child's needs. For educators, it's about fostering an inclusive classroom environment where every student feels valued and seen. Community members can make a difference by volunteering, mentoring, or supporting school initiatives that uplift and empower students. We have to remember that it's the collective efforts of all stakeholders, which includes parents, educators, and the communities, that truly drives the success of our schools. Because one thing that really grinds my gears is how sometimes I get on social media and I see all of these people complaining about things that's going wrong in the schools and things we need to do better, and schools are out of control. And I always say, hey, every school district is looking for subs. So if you think that you got the answers and you want to be a part of the change, please apply to be a sub, and we can definitely use you inside of our building. So don't just do all of the complaining and stuff online. You can come be a part of the change. You can even be a part-time sub. So if that's one way that you can truly help it, because some of us are really social media philosophers, and I say go to ess.com or kellysubservices.com, fill out the application, and I promise you I will have a place for you at the Early Learning Center.
Ooh, Dr. Payne, I'm gonna tell you. So many people don't know this, but I was working on a master's in education, and so I had to go through the student teaching part, and I took a leave of absence. I was working in criminal justice. As a matter of fact, I was working in a prison at that time, so I took a short leave of absence to be able to complete those hours. And I'm gonna be honest, I was happy to get back to that prison after working with them. I was working in the middle school. And hey, boy, I ain't gonna even lie. I was like, whoa, I'm glad to be back with you. Because it was rough. It was rough. In those days, you had to bring energy and focus and be able to adjust to the class that came in and the personality and things like that. And I was like, and I had a lot of respect at that moment. So who wants to go next with that question? Who wants to join in?
I'll go. I'll loop back to what I was saying earlier, encouraging parents to do those things I was talking about. Dr. Payne will know this. The language is, the research says that parents are still the first teacher. Parents are the first teacher. So parents talk to schools, find out when they have events going on, go anyway. And even if your school experience was lousy, which is why a lot of parents don't come because they got bad memories, still go. Make those connections, learn, because you can support your child at home in ways that the school cannot. So work to make sure that it is a school-home partnership, not an adversarial thing. So that would be my one closing comment.
All right. Thank you, Dr. P. Appreciate you. Who's next?
Can I piggyback? Because Dr. P took my notes. I promise you I got it down.
That's what friends do, bro. That's what friends do, man.
Yeah, I see it, Doc. So I'll piggyback. Number one, we need more opportunities like this to embrace the space, because I feel like every educator that watches tonight can't wait to get to work in the morning. Now, I'm down to do a part 2. I'm not wearing no tie 9 o'clock at night no more. Just letting y'all know. So my thought would be, don't let your negative experience impact your child. It's so hard to hear parents say, well, I don't like so-and-so because when I went to school here, you ain't been to school in 20 years. Stop all that. Let your child have the experience you didn't get because somebody showed you how school was not supposed to look.
Right.
And I'll close it.
That's good. That's good.
Perfect. Listen, I intentionally decided to go last because you all gave advice for parents. You gave advice for teachers. As I said, I am the president for the St. Louis Association of School Administrators. One of the things that we need to do, we need to listen to administrators. You know, I was taught that so goes to principals, so goes to schools. True. Many of our principals or administrators are working in very stressful environments. And then the demands are being placed on them without them giving input. And they're leaving stress. You know, I'm getting calls all the time of some things that's taking place. There are some superintendents that are doing a great job. And there are some superintendents that are not doing what should be done. And this conversation needs to be had because the administrators are stressed out and they're dealing with a situation that's like carbon monoxide. It is a deadly poison and no one is talking about it. And so I guarantee you, if you open the floor and have administrators talk about what's going on, then that's another way of helping us to improve what's going on in schools. We got to have the voice of the administrators.
Dr. Cunningham, that's a whole nother episode.
Yes, sir. That's what I said. That's going to be our next episode, right?
I'm ready to tell my lifetime story. Trust me.
And listen, especially right here in Missouri, because administrators do not have collective bargaining, right? And so they say that wheels, and some people do some things to administrators that shouldn't be done. Now, I know the St. Louis Public Schools is going through a whole lot of trouble, but one thing they've perfected since 1976 is having administrators come in and get adequate due process, where they have administrators to have representation to get things done. And I can go into some stories of some other districts that are not doing that. And that's why you have administrators who leave from district to district because they're trying to find a peace of mind more so than the money. So hopefully that can be our next conversation.
You know, you all have given me so much to consider tonight and to plan for that follow-up conversation. And I'm just excited. I'm excited for so many reasons. I'm so excited that the fact of the matter that I have my brothers, my African-American male educators, and I'm in the higher ed system. And having you all here to be able to provide this insight and dialogue, share your experience, share your knowledge, it's been critical for the work that we want to do. And so we want to thank everybody. I want to thank, Dr. Cunningham, Pearson, Dr. Brent Mitchell, Dr. Lanor, Payne. Thank you so much for being here today. And as we wrap up our enlightening discussion on the impact of education, a conversation with Black male educators, I want to express our deepest gratitude to everyone involved. First, a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists for sharing their invaluable insights and experiences. Your dedication to education and commitment to creating more inclusive learning environments are genuinely inspiring. We also like to sincerely thank our co-sponsors, the Upsilon Zeta Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated and the Proficient Education and Leadership Institute. Your support makes these meaningful conversations possible. To our audience, thank you for your active participation. Your engagement reinforces the importance of these discussions in our community. Now I'd like to share some vital information about our podcast and the organization behind it. The No More Hiding podcast airs live on various social media platforms every first and third Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at No More Hiding, the number 4 Men, to stay updated on our future discussions. We would also welcome your input on topics you'd like us to address in upcoming episodes. For those new to our community, let me tell you a little bit about No More Hiding, or NMH. We are a progressive organization dedicated to providing a safe, inviting space for men to engage in authentic conversations about life's challenges. No More Hiding serves men of all backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, ages, nationality, and races. Our mission is to be a haven for men to enjoy fellowship, support, mentorship, and networking. Through a holistic approach, we aim to educate, equip, empower the men to achieve their maximum potential. Our motto, Revealing Authentic Manhood, encapsulates our commitment to helping men find their true purpose regardless of life encounters. As discussed today, education plays a critical role in shaping our future. Whether you're an educator, a parent, a student, a community member, an administrator, I encourage you to apply the insights from today's conversation to your life and your community. Remember, change starts with each of us. Let's continue this conversation and work toward a future where every student has the opportunity to learn from diverse, dedicated educators. Thank you once again for joining us. We hope you tune in to our next conversation, which is on September the 5th, where we'll bring in 4 Black community leaders, Black male community leaders who are doing awesome jobs to have an impact in our community. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, keep striving for positive change in education in your lives. Your manhood, your mission. Thank you.